Hi everyone, it's Rana Husseini, and on today's episode on Through Your Eyes, we have Yaniah Powell, who's here to share her story and her struggle that she faced here at Edinburgh. Thank you for being here and taking time out of your day.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so tell me a little bit about yourself, about your family life, what you do in school, and everything related to that.
Okay, my name is Yaniah Powell, and I'm a freshman here at PennWest Edinboro. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, but I came here to play soccer. Family, I can touch bases on a lot of things with that. My mom was adopted by a white woman, but then she was later adopted by my aunt's mother, so my grandmother. When it comes to family, people can define family in several different ways, but when I think of my family, I think of MY, which is Mario, Yolanda, Mario, Yaniah. It was a foundation instilled in me since I was younger about how no matter who I meet along the way, no matter what I do, I can always have my family to fall back on because they give me unconditional love and unconditional support. No matter what I do, they will always be there to support me, and they have always told me that I can be who I want to be in this world, and nobody can judge me for that. And if they do, I have my family who will love me because I am who I am.
All right, so you said MY. So I assume you guys are a family of four. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have a younger brother. His name is Mario. He's named after my father. It's always been MY. My parents always said that when I have children in the future, their names will have to begin with an M or a Y. All my pets' names have began with an M or a Y. It's always just MY. So I guess you can call it a just repetition of how strong our bond is and how much love we have for each other.
So I could tell that you guys have a very close-knit back home. Mm-hmm. How would you say, moving out here away from home, how was the experience in terms of, being homesick? Was there a culture shock? All those different types of things. How would you say you experienced that?
There was no culture shock, as I mentioned, my mom was adopted, but also growing up, there's never any other people of color. There's no other. I'm always usually just the only black person on the field, and that's fine, but there was no culture shock. My high school was also predominantly white. However, we had foreign exchange students from all over the world, Germany, Europe, Africa, everywhere. Yeah. Missing family, that aspect, that I feel it every day. I'm able to go home, but when I can't, I'll just call my brother, call my dad, call my mom, and we'll talk about literally anything, wherever the moon takes us. It's hard, but I'll get through it.
So prior to this, we discussed different things that you do, and I remember you mentioning something about an organization. How would you touch on that?
The organization you were talking about was an organization that me and two other girls founded my freshman year of high school. The organization is called RACE, which stands for Respect All Cultures Equally, and I mentioned that my high school was predominantly white, and most staff members didn't believe that there was a such thing as white privilege. There wasn't a such thing as microaggressions, implicit bias, and just several other things that affect people of color and minorities. So we wanted to bring awareness and educate not only the staff, but the entire school. And we would do this by holding dialogue days and having debates and just talking about things that aren't commonly talked about. We would also incorporate other cultures into our school schedule, if that's what you want to call it, because we would only really celebrate Black History Month, but it's not only Black students at the school that are the minorities. There is several other ethnicities. So we would do Hispanic Heritage Month and celebrate several other cultures with that.
Okay, so having that type of background, that type of awareness, how would you say your experience here at Edinburgh, how have you applied that? What have you experienced up to this point?
I feel like I contradicted myself. When I faced what I faced, I was scared to speak up. And I'm more of a, you have to make the change, you have to speak up type of person. Mm-hmm. And when I got here, I felt as though I didn't have anybody to fall back on. So I didn't really speak up. But now that I have, things will change, and I'm ready for that change to happen.
Do you want to touch on that a little bit of what you faced and what you experienced here at Edinburgh?
Yes. So all athletes move in before everyone else. So it was just the soccer team and whatever team was here. But the only people that I knew was my team and my roommates who are my teammates. A bit after our first game, I went back home because it was back home. And I received a video, and in the video there were my teammates. They were hanging my teddy bear, and they put their foot on his head, and they just did several other things that are unacceptable. So of course I showed my parents, and they weren't happy about it, which is understandable, like I wasn't either. And before I left, I told them, do not go in my room. I feel like that boundary was already set, though, as we are just now meeting each other. Why would you go into my room? But also because I told them that that teddy bear meant a lot to me because I received him during a traumatic time in my life. When I got back, I addressed my roommate. I was like, hey, you let them into my room. You went into my room. Why are you okay? Like, what made you think that was okay? And then I later touched bases on the fact that what they did can be misinterpreted, or like it's considered racist, and it's very insensitive given the fact that I am black and you hung my teddy bear. With the history of black people and lynching and slavery, it was a very insensitive thing to do, and I informed her on that. I informed her that even if she didn't understand the foot on the head, which is a representation of George Floyd with the knee on his neck, that's understandable. But slavery goes back centuries and centuries, so it's 2022. We all know that slavery and racism, discrimination, like it's still common today. It still takes place today. Even if you don't see it, I lived it, and I just want to bring awareness to people that if they're going through it, they can speak up. They don't have to be scared. And yeah.
So we talked about how that happened back in August, and we are now in November. You know, at what point did you realize, like, enough's enough? Like, what triggered you to speak up finally after holding it in for so long?
There will be little instances where my roommates would do stuff, and while they might not think it's big, it's always the principle behind your actions. Like, even if you feel as though you breaking my least favorite jar is like, oh, it's not a big deal, she doesn't like it. It's the principle. It's mine, you did it. It's just the principle. I just grew tired of having to go through it and live in like an uneasy environment. I should not have tension where I lay my head. And I finally spoke up when one of the trainers here, Amy, asked me why I haven't been myself. So I was like, this is my opportunity to speak up. Let me speak up.
That gave me goosebumps. So how would you say, like, after speaking up, how did the university react? How was, what was everybody's first reaction? And, what were the steps done to prevent this in the future and support you in the process?
Honestly, everything just feels like it came to me at once. Like, once somebody heard of it, it's like it spread like wildfire, and like everybody else knew about it. But I feel like the university is doing an okay job. I'm not really sure what steps to take, but I do know that my coaches have handled it so that the girls who participated in the act are suspended from the team, and those that were in the group chat they were suspended for the season.
And like, I feel like people always think that you need to fight hate with hate. And in your situation, you took the path where you decided to educate before you fight it with hate. Where did that stem from? Where did you have that awareness to realize that I could have easily, mistreated these girls equally as they mistreated me, but you felt the need that you need to educate them and understand that maybe their intention wasn't as ill as it was in that process?
Well, it's more so just because, like, me fighting hate with education comes from my father. He always says to question everything. Everything you see may not be how you're actually taking it. Like, you may come across a situation where you're like, oh, like, you meant this. But you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. Since I grew up with a diverse, like, background in, like, so many parts of my life and code switching and everything, I understood that maybe they didn't mean, maybe they didn't have a racist intent behind what they did because they aren't used to being around African American people and other people. So I was like, okay, well, maybe they just didn't know. But then again, it was hard for me to believe that because, like I said, it's 2022. There's no way you weren't aware of, like, what you were doing was wrong. So the education part just comes from my father, as he always thinks it's best to educate someone before you just go in and do something you'll regret later.
Yeah. So when that happened and everything did happen, I noticed that your reaction, what you were told, is that you need to go to someone who understands you.
Yeah.
And what do you have to say to people who tell you something like that? Because I don't necessarily agree. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't like when it comes to stuff like that, it really upsets me, like that I take offense to it. Like, why do you feel as though someone who looks like me is the only person who will understand what I'm going through? Like, you understand what I'm going through, and we're not the same color. But I don't, it really, a friend told me that someone here sent her to talk to me because she looks like me, and she knew that she would understand what I'm going through. But why is it that you can only go to someone who looks like me? Like, is that because you know that they have faced it too? Or it, like, so many questions just come to my head, and it really upsets me. It feels as though, like, even some people in the situation who you would probably say do not understand what I'm going through, it felt as if they were just trying to sweep this situation under the rug. So that's probably why people feel as though someone who looks like me can come to me. But I just hate that that's basically a stereotype. Like, you're stereotyping that all black people have went through the same thing, and that probably might not even be true. Like, there are probably some black people that have never experienced racism. So it's just the fact that, I don't know, that question or that statement really just raises a lot of questions with me.
Okay, beyond that experience, and obviously you're working your way through it, why have you stayed, or like, what was your reason for coming to Edinburgh? Like, what is it here that's, attracted you to come here?
I just like the feeling of a small school. Like, I'm big on family, and I feel like a small school is like a family foundation. I definitely did have thoughts of leaving after like the incident, but I've never been the type of person to run away from something. And I know that it took me a long time to speak up, but I can't just speak up and then leave. I have to, once I spoke up, I was like, okay, I got this ship sailing, let's keep it going. There's no point of letting it sink now. Mm-hmm. So that's more of the reason why I decided to stay.
If you had to sum up your whole story and what you gained from it, what are a few words that you leave, our viewers with, and, your family with? What is something that you want your family to know, and somebody else that's going through the same thing?
To someone else going through the same thing, and to everyone viewing this video, I just want them to know that their voice is powerful. So speak up and use it. Nothing will change if you don't start pushing for a change to happen. To my family, I probably just want to thank them for supporting me and pushing me to be able to recognize that I have a voice, and that by using it, change will happen, and that no matter what happens, they will always be there for me.
Thank you.